Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest batch of listener questions. On this one, we're looking at the best Premier League academies, we're debating World Cup boycotts, and we're selecting the best manager in world soccer right now. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, hello Taylor Rockwell.
Hello Ryan Bailey, a happy Saturday to you all. What's everyone's go-to Saturday morning cartoon, either past or present? Let's talk about it, since I'm sure we're all watching cartoons this morning.
SpongeBob, strong.
Looney Tunes.
Me and Sophie do the little flute SpongeBob thing at the start. We do that together. It's cute. I should put it on the Patreon one day. Subscribe to the Patreon. There's some high quality content on there.
Clearly.
Joe, the Coyote versus Acme movie has finally gotten a release date, so you're going to get that movie coming out.
It's like a real thing that's happening.
The Coyote sues Acme for all the failed products it's used over the year, and it's like the Coyote. It's like a Roger Rabbit style, like the Coyote in real life, but it's been shelved. I think because they were going to try to write it off for tax reasons, and now they've decided not to, so it will instead be released, even though it's fully done with like Steve Martin as one of the leads, I think.
Wow. This is good new information. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
I will be watching.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Is a roadrunner a real animal?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They both
we have a
are.
bunch of them in the desert.
Do you really?
Yeah. They pretty much look just like the ones in the cartoon.
Do they
More or
run on
less.
the roads? And do they go meep meep?
They don't go meep meep. That is the one creative liberty I think that they really did
Just the
take.
one.
But they're quite
Joe-
fast in short bursts.
Joe rides one to the supermarket.
Yeah. Yeah, my Roadrunner's parked out back. I didn't know. I
Wow.
told you guys that.
Yeah, it's very roomy. It has a trunk and a frunk. It's very practical. For the
There's
shopping road.
like I think it's the gospel of that cartoon that like you have to abide by if you're going to write or make a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon, and it's always like the Coyote must be beaten by himself, not the Roadrunner. The Coyotes must always be more like forlorn than angry at the end of the episode. It's very good rules for writing those, and I find them fascinating.
Like brand guidelines.
Yes.
Like how bad guys aren't allowed to have iPhones in films.
Yes, exactly.
Unless you're M. Night Shyamalan and you self-finance your movie, and then you're like, I can do what I want.
There we go.
Kinda
To answer your question, Graham, there is a cartoon I watched religiously as a kid, and everyone who is around my age did so as well. I always thought it was American, but I found out when I moved here it's Canadian, and I don't even know if it was shown in America. The Raccoons. Do you remember?
Yes.
So the Raccoons was a big cartoon.
I thought it was American as well.
Yeah, it's Canadian. Bunch of raccoons live in the forest. Their enemy is a guy called Cyril Sneer who's trying to like destroy the forest. That's basically it.
Yeah. I guess there's a lot of stuff that maybe didn't translate over the... Well, I guess that did, just not from America to the UK, from Canada to the UK. Like, was there in the UK, in the US, did the one with the dog flying the plane ever get to the US? Ryan, do you have any idea what I'm talking about? What was that called again? I forget.
Wacky Races?
No, not Wacky Races. I'll research this. It was great. It was my jam.
Plane.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't recall that one.
That's what I take to the supermarket.
Was it like an Ed Bud movie, but it was a pilot that time?
Yeah, it's
Maybe
great
it was
fun.
that. Yeah. We also had another one that we watched on Saturday mornings called The Littlest Hobo, which was about a German Alsatian dog, and it was just like it used to roam around, and it was a hobo dog. But that was Canadian too, I think. I don't think that was on US TV either.
The Littlest Hobo?
The Littlest Hobo had a really good theme tune. Maybe tomorrow I wanna settle down. Until tomorrow,
Yeah, I remember The
I'll
Littlest
just keep
Hobo.
moving on. It's great.
Come
Really good
Outside
fun.
was what I was thinking of. That's the dog flying the plane.
Classic plane.
Great
title.
stuff.
Yeah. Very good.
Alsatians
All right.
are what you call German Shepherds if you don't want to call them German Shepherds, right? Is that what
I
it
think
was?
so.
Yeah, okay.
Can you also call them Roadrunners? I don't know.
Yes.
One and the
They
same.
do run on roads. They have been known to. Let's get to our listener questions, shall we? Right after patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. It's our bonus content, the best way to support us. You'll get bonus episodes, including bonus listener questions, access to our Discord server as well. All the cool kids are hanging out in there. If you do partake in our Patreon, our bonus listener question this week is about unbeaten or largely unbeaten teams who didn't win their leagues. Basically teams who are pretty perfect but didn't get a trophy in the end. We're going to be talking about that one from 26,000 Units of Beast from our Discord. Love that name. Still love that name. So join us there, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Let's get to our listener questions for this episode, though, starting off with Richard Rolson. While still a great manager, Pep Guardiola is probably not the indisputable best manager in world football, and Jurgen Klopp has stepped away from managing. Who would you say currently has the claim on being the best manager in world football? I think, Graham, I reject the premise because I think it is Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, I think it is as well, still.
Is that it? Is this the quickest
I mean,
answer ever?
I accept he's maybe not like the indisputable best manager in the world right now. But if I was a super club and money was no object and I could hire any manager in the world, yeah, Pep would still be the guy that I'd go for, I think.
Anyone come close?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Luis Enrique is certainly up there as one of the best managers in the world right now. Obviously, PSG spend a whole load of cash and have like all the talent in the world, but we have seen that go wrong for them in the past. And I think, when I think of teams that are genuine reflections of their manager, I think of PSG. Like, he's molded that team. I don't think you can doubt his influence on PSG at the moment. The other top managers who I really do think are that 1 in 10 that Simon Cooper talks about. I can't remember if I've referenced that on the show recently or not, but Simon Cooper, author of Soccernomics, basically has a theory that only 1 in 10 managers actually have a meaningful impact on their on the results of their team. That's Joe's alias, Simon Cooper. Antonio Conte, I don't think there's any doubt that he repeatedly gets teams to be more than the sum of their parts very, very quickly, even if he flames out after a couple seasons. I think Hansi Flick is up there right now. I think you can see his principles pretty clearly in the way that Barcelona play, and before that Bayern Munich. And then I guess, while this might not be the style of football, and we're recording this after an Arsenal-Chelsea game that almost bored me to tears in the Carabao Cup. Mikel Arteta's style of football isn't always my favourite style of football, but I think you can see his influence very, very clearly in Arsenal. And then maybe another Premier League mention, Unai Emery, for how teams consistently overperform under him. Obviously, it didn't work for him really at Arsenal, not so much at PSG, but he's really moulded that Villa team. He's had complete freedom to mould that team in his own image, and Villa consistently overachieve every single season. So those would be the ones that I would put up there, but Pep would still be my pick, I think.
Yeah. You can go, Taylor? Sorry, go, Joe.
I was just going to say, it seems like there's Pep consensus, and he's probably still my answer as well, so maybe this is coming from a weird place. Is it Pep Guardiola? Manchester City haven't been great in either of the last 2 seasons. It sort of seems like the tactical meta has maybe left Pep behind a little bit, where his teams have lacked for physicality and they have lacked in the defensive phase and they've been overly stretched. And Pep has tried to adapt to that, which is reasonable, and I think shows that he is a smart coach, and I'm not doubting that whatsoever. By the way, Pep Guardiola has forgotten more about soccer in the last 6 months than I will ever know about soccer, just to be very, very clear about that. But it's not as if his tactical approach is the one defining the modern game anymore. I think that was the argument for a long time. That's not true. City aren't going to win the title this year. They didn't win the title last year. I don't know. Is this not leftover? And I suppose a second piece of that, nobody has to answer that because I think you all maybe disagree, which is fine. But it feels to me like it's a little bit of leftover stuff. And another piece of this, of all of this, is that I think this is also just a symptom of there not really being the next Pep or the next one manager in terms of, this person is elevating this club in such a clear and obvious way, or is timing their arrival with a whole lot of money, which is clever from Pep, I suppose. But we haven't had that anymore. And when you think about who the big clubs have hired recently, it's a lot more in the Vincent Kompany sort of profile. Famous soccer person, of course, not famous soccer manager. It's a lot more of that than it is of going out and hiring the big names. I know Xabi Alonso had success in the Bundesliga, but Real Madrid hiring Xabi Alonso is not Manchester City hiring Pep Guardiola, right? So it seems to me that how these clubs, even the biggest clubs in the world, are hiring and thinking about managers has changed. And Pep just happens to be the last of the big guns who got the job and has stuck in it and at least has enough cred to be the default answer to this, even if he's not really the answer anymore.
Yeah, I almost entirely agree with everything you've said there, Joe. I don't think there's a defining tactical style. I certainly don't think Pep is setting that zeitgeist anymore. I'm actually writing a piece about this actually at the moment, so I completely agree with all that. I equally don't feel like he's been left behind though, in the way that other managers have. Like Arsene Wenger, it got to a point where it just felt like the modern game had left him behind. Ferguson preempted that by jumping before that happened, but it felt like the process was already underway with Ferguson. I feel like Guardiola is still very much part of that. Like he's borrowing ideas from Arteta, he's borrowing ideas from other. I feel like he's always going to adapt in that sense, and that's always going to keep him pretty close to the top of the managerial game. The other thing is, I do cut him some slack for some of the other factors at Man City at the moment, like his close colleagues, Begiristain and a couple others have left City. He's working with a fairly inexperienced new sporting director in Hugo Viana. They've had to go through this pretty fundamental squad rebuild over the last 18 months, and there's still a lot of moving pieces there. So I still feel like Pep Guardiola, if you put him in an environment where everything was perfect, the sort of environment that he's been in before at Barcelona and Bayern Munich and at Man City previously, I still think we see a Pep Guardiola team that is utterly dominant, and we still see his influence in the way that we've seen previously. But I guess we don't know. Like, it does feel like these are sort of different times for him.
Yeah, and there's also the reality in the back of all this. This is sort of why I reject the premise of the question, even though it's a really interesting thought exercise. It's just so hard to tell. Like, it is just so hard to tell who the best managers in the world is. We talked recently about what was maybe going to be next for Pep Guardiola, Graham Ryan and I on a show. And we all said we want him to go somewhere where he wouldn't just be handed the best squad by a country mile in the league, or one of the 5 best squads, whatever, right? It's hard to tell how impactful a manager like Pep would be in that situation. I think he would still be incredible. That seems like the safe bet. I would not bet against him. But my point is, it's really difficult to tell who the good coaches are and who the coaches are that just have a bunch of money and actually aren't really very good. You know, that is just almost impossible to tell, because players are the ones that decide the games. Fundamentally, coaches will tell you that. That is just obviously how the sport works. Coaches matter, but they matter less than the players. And if you have good players, it's really hard to tell if the players are carrying you or if you're adding something to them. It's not impossible in all situations, but it's difficult. So answering this question is very, very challenging. But I feel like my takeaway is that managers are just thought of differently by the best clubs in the world now than they were before. And that makes having one rise above the rest being really, really difficult. It's hard to find that nowadays.
Yeah, Taylor? I think that you guys have covered it really well. I think the only thing for me is, like, if you had an alien come down and ask this question, and then they're looking at the different leagues and where teams are, like, I don't know if Pep would be as easy of a sell, basically just because of the short-termism of that thought experiment. And it probably is Luis Enrique then, or maybe Hansi Flick, to Graham's point, because of the recent successes and because of what they're doing now. I think of Pep as similar to the way I think of, like, Lionel Messi, where even if Messi isn't, like, right now the best player on the planet, he's the best player on the planet. And so it might kind of ebb and flow, but he's always going to be in that conversation. And I think 5 years from now, presuming he is still managing, Pep is probably still in that conversation, whereas maybe some of the other ones aren't as successful by that point. So it's an interesting question, because I think the immediacy of the question begs maybe a different answer than other than Pep, but I still go back to him as the ultimate answer.
Excellent stuff. Richard Ralston, thank you very much for your question. We're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we're becoming sporting directors. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to Listener Questions. Garrett 26. There were 25 Garretts before Garrett, and here we are.
Usernames are hard to come by in 2026, man. It's hard.
I know, right? All right, yeah, there we go. Garrett, thank you very much for this one. You are a sporting director, and you have to choose between building a team with either Pedri or Lamine Yamal. Who do you choose and why? Joe, is this question as easy as I think it is?
I think so, but
I love
Pedri so much, which makes this very, very difficult.
Well, I came to you first.
I assume you went with Lamine Yamal, Ryan, unless I'm way off about that. I did the same. And honestly, I don't think it's very difficult. If they were the same age, this maybe would be a little bit more difficult. Lamine Yamal is 5 years younger. 5. Half of a decade than Pedri. Pedri is one of the best young players on the planet. That is wild to me. Pedri is amazing and may go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the sport and to ever play in his role, which is just a delightful, progressive, clever, even creative central midfield type who can do a little bit of everything and is literally the perfect player for his role in a possession team. I'm picking Yamal, even in spite of all that stuff. Lamine Yamal's role is more valuable, straight up. Scoring goals and creating goals matters more than possession, retention, and progression. That's just how the sport works. You need a mixture of all of those things. Sorry, Taylor, I didn't hear. I
said somebody's watching Major League Soccer. Score goals, man. Designated players. That's where it all goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the money's at. You need a mixture of creation and scoring and possession, retention, and progression, and other things too, of course, to have a really great team. So this is not like Lamine Yamal and surround him with 10 schlubs and my team's done. But the scoring and creation bits are harder and more valuable, and Lamine Yamal is better at both of those things than Pedri. I don't know. Pedri's amazing. I love him. He's probably more of my favorite of these two to watch than Lamine Yamal, just because I'm broken like that and goals are for chumps. But goals aren't for chumps. They're the hardest things to find, and Lamine Yamal is really good at that stuff.
Yeah. I'd agree with Joe. I'd go with Lamine Yamal without question. Firstly, because Pedri has the knees of a. He might be. How old is Pedri? 23 or something.
23.
He's got the knees of a 73-year-old Pedri, and barely plays because of it. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but he has had issues with injury. Because Barcelona have run him into the ground. I'm sure that's coming Yamal's way as well in the coming years. But am I wrong to think there are fewer players who can do what Yamal does than what Pedri does? Like I can think of a few players who do Pedri's role and are kind of like similar. Like Vitinha is kind of similar. I think there's some overlap between what Florian Wirtz does in Pedri. He's maybe slightly more advanced than Pedri, but nonetheless there's overlap. I think Arda Güler isn't like a million miles away from Real Madrid's Pedri when he plays centrally. But when I think of right-sided wide attackers who can do it all, who can dribble and shoot and pass and score and come up with moments of magic in the biggest games, which is what Yamal does, it's like
John McGinn,
of course, yeah.
Jadon Sanchez.
After John McGinn. Like Michael Olise was the closest I could come up with, and he's significantly older than Yamal, and I think Yamal is better than Michael Olise. Salah would have been maybe the answer a year ago, but isn't the same player now. So I just feel like there are fewer. He's a rarer commodity, Lamine Yamal, than Pedri, as good as he is.
To make the Elise comparison there, Greg, who is better than Yamal at what he does? Surely no one.
No, I've said for a couple of years now. It's kind of similar to Taylor's point about Messi being the best player in the world, and even when things ebb and flow, Messi's still the best player in the world. I kind of feel like right now I'd make that argument about Lamine Yamal. I think in terms of pure talent, he is the best player in the world right now. I kind of think he's outrageous, Lamine Yamal. Like some of the things I was watching him in the Copa del Rey this weekend. He's fantastic to watch.
Maybe this is a bit of a silly question. It probably is, and it's not directly related. I wouldn't go so far as to call Lamine Yamal the best player in the world right now, but I mean, it's not that far off. You would take him over Mbappe. Like if you had to win a game tomorrow, Graham, you would take Lamine Yamal over Kylian Mbappe.
I would.
Just on talent alone, which
No.
that may be
my premise is that you are trying to win the Champions League final tomorrow. Let's assume you have a team around that player that reasonably fits. Like you can kind of build the team around them however you want. Which of those two guys would you pick?
I'd pick Lamine Yamal. Yep.
Interesting.
I honestly think he's. When you watch him play, you know when you play pickup soccer or five-a-side and there's just a guy who is, and this is going to sound so reductive and simplistic, there's just a guy who's better, like everything. I feel like that watching Lamine Yamal, except he's playing for Barcelona in the Champions League or whatever, and he makes the other guys around him look, and he's 18 years old. Like he is just better at everything, and he can do things better than everyone else as well. So yeah, for me, he's the best player in the world.
Interesting.
The counterpoint, and I want to say this up front, but Graham and Joe know more about this topic than I do. I think you guys watch Barcelona more. Joe, I think you have more of an affinity for Barcelona. Graham, I think you just know more about Barcelona. So I take your answers as being the correct ones. The only reason why I had Pedri, which I did, is because the question is to build a team around. And I think teams oftentimes try to build around attackers, and I don't think it goes well. Whereas like the midfield engine who can dictate play, but also kind of serve as the stylistic epitome of what you want and be a leader. Pedri is the fourth captain for Barcelona, if that counts as leadership. Like there is an idea there that you build around those kind of core players that can like personify the style of play you want your team to have versus get the ball to Lamine Yamal and then we'll figure it out from there. That's the only reason why I would go Pedri, because the age difference is huge. I think Pedri is out right now with injury. Yamal is certainly not. So I think Yamal is probably the answer, but that's the only reason why I could see you could go Pedri.
Yeah, I mean, Pedri would still be very high on my list. Like if I had to make a list of 20 players or whatever for this exercise, I imagine Pedri would be in that top 20. It's just so hard to find a guy who does what Lamine Yamal does, which is great. I thought I'd be the highest on Lamine Yamal here. I'm not, I suppose, but the dude is amazing for sure.
I want to extend Joe's question though before we go, because I kind of forget that Mbappe has not won the Champions League, nor has Lamine Yamal. Which of them wins the Champions League first? Lamine Yamal or Kylian Mbappe?
Well, Barcelona have a better chance this season, so I would say Lamine Yamal over Mbappe.
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
basically it's a
still,
question
like,
of Barcelona versus Real Madrid for the next decade or whatever, right?
Yeah.
If that's where they stay.
I'll go Barcelona.
Just going back to like the assessment of Lamine Yamal as a player, the one reservation is his work rate. Like that was a talking point in the first half of the season, and he does seem to have dialed in a little bit more since the turn of the year. I don't know whether Hansi Flick has sat him down and made a point to him. That was also the point that was made to. There's the infamous video of Lucho talking to Mbappe at PSG, and I'm not entirely sure that he got through to him. But that is the one thing with Lamine Yamal is like. There have been hints that, and he's still a kid, so I don't want to be too harsh on him, but maybe his work rate and work ethic could be slightly better. But
I'm trying to imagine what that
won't
conversation
flourish
is like with Hansi Flick. Like, hey, Lamine, sit down, pal. Like, our backline's the only players that can stand around and not move, okay? Everybody else has to do something. Our defenders are the ones that get to stand there and stand with their feet planted in cement. You don't get to do that. That's probably how it went down.
That's how it went, yep.
When you build your team around Lamine Yamal, do you also have to bring over the giant mural of his father to come with him? Do you have to add that to your stadium to make sure that
I'll
everybody's
paint a
happy?
new one. I'll paint a new one for him. And he
Even
can bring
more
over the old
prominent to
one.
the father instead
No
of Lamine
problem.
Yamal. Cool.
I think that's actually going to be the roof of the new camp now. It's going to be like the Sistine Chapel. You know how it's closing roof?
Wow.
It's Lamine Yamal's dad touching David instead.
Yeah.
Perfect. Or is it Adam that he's touching? I forget. Either way, you get the joke.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Garrett26, thank you very much indeed for that question. We go now to Bry Guy from our Discord, who says, over the last 5 years, which EPL academies are consistently producing senior team players? And what sets their academies apart? I mean, Graham, typically over the last few years, it's been your Chelseas, your Man Cities, your Arsenals, probably your Liverpools, who are top tier for academy talent. Does that hold?
Ryan is flawless at answering the question before you get to, and then you're like, well, that was my answer.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Did you also read the CIES Football Observatory report from 2024?
Football
Ryan,
in
as well?
space.
Let's say yes.
They make me say that every time.
My favourite of all the observatories. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like the way they class an academy product is they have to have spent 3 years at a club between their 15th and 21st birthday. And in their analysis, Man City come out on top as the most productive academy in the Premier League. Then it was Arsenal, then it was Chelsea, then it was Manchester United, and then it was Liverpool. City have 50 active players in the top 49 leagues around the world. Arsenal have 42, Chelsea have 34, Man United have 40, Liverpool have 36. I know that's not a linear number, but they also factored in the amount of game time that those players are getting in those leagues. And yeah, Man City have been... I mean, at various other points in history, it's been Manchester United in the 90s and into the 2000s. I think Arsenal have been the most productive club as well at certain other points, maybe like towards the end of the 2000s, I think of when they were pumping out young players at that point. City are prolific and have been prolific for a long time. I'm always shocked at the number of players you don't even know have come through the City Academy who didn't get an opportunity at City. They go somewhere else and they get their opportunity there. Carlos Forbes, who's definitely not the most noteworthy academy products have come from City, but we were talking about him last week playing for Club Brugge. I learned in my research for this question that he was a City Academy player. He's now at Club Brugge and he's brilliant. But guys like Morgan Rogers passed through the Manchester City Academy and passed through maybe sort of the operative words there, because a lot of the time Man City will actually, and a number of these other clubs, they will pay to get in a very talented 15 or 16 year old. Then they'll have them in the academy for like 2 or 3 years, and then they decide what to do with them, whether it's move them into the first team or sell them on or loan them out. So Morgan Rogers followed that same trajectory. Jadon Sancho, Romeo Lavia, Liam Delap. Like, I could go on and on and on. Players who have had that education through Manchester City. So yeah, they are top of the list by all accounts, I think.
Yeah. Anything more to add, Taylor?
Just that I think is an interesting question, because I think it points to the idea that like the model has shifted. To Graham's point, in the 90s, early 2000s, it feels like it's much more you have a squad made up of academy players that is then like punctuated or maybe 50-50 with players that you've brought in. And nowadays it feels much more like you have a few players that have come through your academy that are in the squad, and then many more that you have sold or loaned out. And that seems to be the Chelsea model of like basically develop to profit in their pipeline of maybe they're never going to play for Chelsea. Maybe they'll play one game in their 5-year career at Chelsea because they'll be loaned out the whole time. But you've brought them in, you've developed them in the academy theoretically, and then you've sold them on and made a profit when they didn't really cost you anything to begin with. That seems to be where we are, and that's where like those numbers for Manchester City. How many did you say in Europe? Was it like 53, Graham?
They have 50 active players.
50.
Manchester City.
I think it's 34 in the English football pyramid alone, and so some of that I think is the multi-club ownership model, and you have greater reach. But some of that is just that we're going to bring players through. We'll develop them for a few years. They'll have a city stamp on them. They're going to be more alluring as a result, and now we can sell them for $7 million when we spent $100,000 to bring them in the first place. Because I do also think a lot of these guys are 16-year-olds who have gone into the academy and then played there for 3 years. The club that seems to buck that a little bit would be Arsenal. Because you look at Saka, you look at the Pirate, and you look at Reece Nelson as examples. Those are all guys who were there at a very young age and stayed with Arsenal from a very young age versus moved there at 15 or 16 or 17 and were technically in the academy and then moved on or then made the senior team.
I love that example, Taylor. And Graham, correct me if I'm wrong. Apologies. There was a lot of information from the observatory there. Morgan Rogers, you said, was a City Academy product, right? Mm-hmm. Which I didn't know. And that's true. He spent most of his youth career at West Brom, I believe.
Yeah.
So that I just bring that up to say it's quite common, I think, for the big clubs, the same ones you think of, to go out there and get the best young players from all the other clubs, right? You go through and look at these rankings. It's not West Brom and Leicester and Hull and whoever else. I mean, actually, I think Hull have a lot of Premier League minutes played by their academy products this past season. But it's not those teams that are churning out most of the players because, as far as I understand it, I'm not an expert in the youth game. I'm certainly not an expert in the British youth game by any means. But it seems to me that a lot of those players that are being developed by the have-nots, sort of the English soccer period, end up at the haves, just like they do at the senior level. And that means that because there's so much investment, and Chelsea are a good example of this, where I had Chelsea down as my answer to this question. They had more, according to an article that I read, which is not from Football in Space, they had more minutes played by Chelsea Academy products in the Premier League of any team in England this past season. Chelsea just invested a truckload of money in their academy 20 years ago under Abramovich and kind of kept at it, and having a transfer ban helped when they couldn't bring in players, and so they basically had to prove their concept themselves at the highest level, and it kind of worked, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of Chelsea players playing meaningful minutes that have come through the youth setup. So money matters. Like, money matters a lot in all this stuff. We see similar trends in MLS, where the Philadelphia Union has spent a ton of money on their academy, at least relative to their first team spending, relative to most every other MLS team. San Diego are investing a ton of money in youth development. Not a shock that those clubs seem to be the ones leading the charge in youth development right now in MLS. So money matters a lot. And I would say if you're looking for what sets some of these teams apart, that is towards the top of the list, if not at the very tippy top.
Yeah, that is at the top of the list for me. I think that's quite clear. Like Alejandro Garnacho is a good example of this. Manchester United, quote-unquote, academy product. Man United paid £420,000 to Atletico Madrid to sign him as a 15-year-old. The one that always gets brought up in Scottish football was, and this happened this week in the transfer on transfer deadline day, Arsenal and Spurs scooped up two of the best young teenagers in Scotland, Evan Mooney and James Wilson from Hearts, just because they could. Like, it cost them $300,000 to sign the two of them. That is nothing to them. Chelsea went and signed, to your point, Joe, about what Chelsea do. They went and got Billy Gilmore from Rangers at the age of 15 for $200,000, because to Chelsea, £200,000 is nothing, and they can just stock their academy with these young players and see which ones make it at the top level. So, yeah, that's the biggest difference.
That must be so frustrating, Graham. Like, I think of it from like a poker standpoint. If you've ever played poker with somebody who, it's like if it's like a $40 buy-in, it's like, oh, who cares about money? I'm just going to stay in every single hand. It's sort of like defeat. It's like, yeah, no one cares about the money. It's about outplaying, outwitting, whatever. If you have somebody who's just like, oh, well, I busted, I'll buy back in. Oh, but now I stayed in this hand that I shouldn't have, and I like caught 3 sevens. Like, it does sort of defeat the purpose of the game. And when, Arsenal or whomever can just be like, oh, what, 400,000? Like a record sum for you? That's nothing for us. We don't even care. It kind of is a bummer.
This is a huge talking point in Scottish football, because since Brexit, they find it more difficult, English clubs, to go and do it around Europe, and so Scottish clubs are just being plundered for their best young talent, which on one hand is like great for us, because the best ones will break through and will automatically be in the Premier League. But I think the vast majority of them will end up in 2 years at like Colchester United, and will have like no shade to Colchester United. I don't know why I picked on them, but in the lower leagues in England, we just won't have had much experience. Like James Wilson was getting first team football. He wasn't a key figure for Hearts, but like he was playing games for Hearts this season, and now he's going to Spurs academy team. So there's a balance there to be struck, I guess.
Graham, which player that definitely came through their respective club's academy deserves more credit? Is it Arsenal for developing Cesc Fabregas and their academy, or is it Manchester United for developing Gerard Piqué and their academy?
Yes. Yes, they just bought La Masia in the form of a couple players. Yeah.
Both technically academy players for that 1 year. There you go.
Honestly, the City one is a great game to play at the moment. Like, players you have no idea. How many listeners know that Jeremy Frimpong is a Manchester City academy player? Like, you can go through so many players and they pass through Manchester City's academy.
How young was Cole Palmer, or did they get him from somewhere else?
I don't know. That's a good one. I mean, he's a Manchester United fan, isn't he? So maybe he was poached from the other side of the city.
Yeah, who knows? And if you think it's half of Scotland, Graham, think about a League One team like AFC Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Who, if you've got a Jamal Musiala, a big club will say, "Oh, here is £10 on a Blockbuster video coupon. You will have that, and you'll be happy."
Ah.
So yeah.
I mean, you were fundraising
Palmer was
for...
at City. Sorry, I just did the research on that.
They got it.
Yeah,
They got him when he was 8. That counts, right?
Yeah. That counts.
Eze playing for Arsenal from the age of 8 to 13, I think it was, or something like that. That's the one that I always forget about until it gets mentioned as his former club that he's returned to.
Was Harry Kane at Arsenal, or was he just an Arsenal fan?
Oh, that's a good question, yeah. I'm not sure. I think he might have just been a fan. I don't know if he was at Arsenal.
Anyway.
1 year.
Oh, there we go.
Ridgeway Rovers, Arsenal, Ridgeway Rovers, Tottenham, or excuse me, Watford, and then Tottenham for 5 years.
There you go. Arsenal heritage. There we go. Thank you very much indeed, Brian Guy, for that one. One more quick break. When we come back, we've got some US soccer and World Cup questions for you. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions. JK461. There were 460 JKs, including the Jamiroquai singer, before we got to JK. Incredible. If you could all give one message to US soccer casuals between now and June, what would you like them to know? I think, Taylor, my abiding message is that Total Soccer Show will be doing excellent daily coverage of the World Cup, and you should stick with us. That's the one thing you should know. Do you have another thing?
I did not have that, but that is the one thing that everyone should know, and we should end it there, I think. Good job, Ryan. Well answered.
Thank you.
I think I would say, if they are extremely casual, I would remind everybody that going to a World Cup is itself an experience, and sometimes the experience. So if you were coming in thinking we're going to win, right? We're one of the best teams. That's how it works. You're going to be disappointed. So my 3 pieces of advice is how I took this one. Ignore the hype, set realistic goals, and then always have hope. I think that's how you support the U.S. at a World Cup, is you kind of recognize it's not likely we're going to win this game against Germany or Portugal, but we might. And so you always kind of have that hope. You always have that belief, especially in this World Cup where it seems like it's an easy group. It seems like the expectation should be win at least one knockout round game. And I think that probably is the expectation. But at the same time, it's always going to be tricky. And especially at a time when I think the United States as a nation is probably the least popular it's been in a very long time, there's going to be added motivation for teams to beat the United States. And so I think it's going to be tougher no matter what. So kind of the second point then becomes rallying kind of behind the boys. Our boys are our boys. Let them be their own thing and a representative unit of this nation, not a political reminder of our current existence or something like that. You're not rooting for the government of this country if you are rooting for the national team of this country. They're two very, very different things. And my final one would be just enjoy the ride, have fun, and celebrate with any fans of any other national teams you might come into contact with, because you are still, a representative of this nation. So be friendly, buy a beer, hug after a goal. Remember the phrase, people dislike the government, but people like people. And at a time when only 16% of the country trust the government to do the right thing, roughly 74% of people from 24 different nations, this was Pew Research, do not think that government represents the common person. I think you could let sport be a uniter, remind us that sport can bring an entire world together and make an entire world stop what they're doing to watch 22 guys kick a ball for a while. So I think remembering the collective spirit of the World Cup and supporting our national team is the best way to be.
Taylor, you should write all my speeches. I don't know if I have any best man speeches or whatever coming down the pipeline at some point before I die. I'm going to outsource it all to you. That was great.
Yeah, we needed some dramatic sort of rising
For
music
real.
to go under that. Yeah. Yeah, I hope that goes in the edit.
When he said Pew Research, I was like, oh, I'm in.
All good speeches have Pew Research in them.
Of course.
If it were on Independence Day, I could really end up with the speech from Independence Day, the movie, and that would have been the way to go.
Could have been.
The Will Smith speech? Oh, hell no. That one.
Welcome to Earth. Yeah, that one.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Graham, any thoughts on what the message you would give to US soccer casuals? I assume that means casuals in the sense of
Well,
casual
I took
fan
it a
rather
different
than-
way, yeah.
rather than hooligans. Yeah,
I thought we meant like Green Street casuals, so my answer was England fans don't like water cannons. That's my my
Good
bit of
boy.
advice.
Too soon,
yeah.
Graham. Still too soon.
I don't understand what's going on.
Like a Green Street. You ever seen Green Street, Joe?
I have no clue
The
what
film.
that is.
Okay.
Over here, it's called Green Street Hooligans.
There we go.
A casual is sort of a byword for a hooligan, Joe.
Yeah. That's
Good.
A casual
Very good.
hooligan. So, no, my answer is pretty similar to Taylor's, at least kind of like from the sporting side of things. The international game is competitive. This is not the Olympics. So if we're talking proper casual fans here, like someone who doesn't watch much or any soccer, is coming into this World Cup without any kind of prior knowledge of who the good teams are. The Olympics is, you can kind of plot who's going to be high up the medal table, basically on population, is how the Olympics works. Soccer's kind of different. Like, obviously that is a factor, but, you know, the US is going to play Paraguay in the group stage. Paraguay can win that game. Like, a much smaller nation, but they can win that game. And we'll see that throughout the competition, where the level of competition is pretty high. Yes, okay, there will be a couple teams that are thumped pretty thoroughly, I think, especially in the 48-team format. But the US, to Taylor's point, the quarterfinals is a very successful World Cup, like a very successful World Cup for the US, considering where the team was like a year ago. And so winning isn't the be-all and end-all. Like, there are countless stories throughout the World Cup that are like little victories for teams, and the US can have their own victory without winning the trophy at the end of it all.
Yeah, I'm not a speechist. I don't know. That's not a word.
Great, like,
it might be in my speech.
Thank you.
So I didn't really know what to say to this, and I went down a very different path. I will say to both of your speeches, as excellent as they were, isn't the one thing that U.S. soccer casuals know about the U.S. men's national team is that they're not going to win the World Cup? I don't think we need to do any expectation setting for these folks.
I honestly have no
I
idea.
talk to people, and that's fair. When I talk to people and tell them what I do for work, and maybe we talk about the World Cup, the only response I ever get about the U.S. men's national team is like a negative one, right?
Yep.
So I don't think I need to tell them to like tamp down the enthusiasm. I think they've already done that for themselves. Maybe I would say, just in terms of expectation setting, just in case, if somebody tells you that the bar for the U.S. should be the semifinals at the World Cup, which I have seen some people say, that's absurd, and you should ignore that. But I think most everybody on the casual front doesn't even know where to go to get that sort of information, where they would be deceived into thinking that. And in general, they just think the U.S. men's national team is mediocre to bad, which is, I suppose, kind of true in the context of a World Cup. Mostly mediocre to maybe a little bit above average, I guess. But the thing I would say to U.S. soccer casuals, like casuals, fans of the American game, is that soccer's really fun, and there's probably more of it near you than you think. I think the legacy of this World Cup is going to be at the bottom of the funnel, right? Or bottom of the pyramid, maybe I'll say that much. Where it's maybe not even in the pyramid. The U.S. soccer pyramid is weird and misshapen anyway, so maybe pyramid's not even the right term. It's going to be at the bottom levels of the game. Where if the legacy of the World Cup in '94 on the men's side was the existence of MLS and sort of the explosion of the professional game, we have that. And the game is going to continue to expand, although there's some craziness going on in USL at the moment, and CBA not being there for the USL players in the championship. And USL is planning a lot of stuff without a lot of concrete plans of how they're going to get there. So this stuff is still not all that stable. But soccer at the professional level is much more stable than it was before. And it's going to be basically up to those leagues as to how they're going to continue to grow rather than the after effects of a World Cup. I think the impact is going to be youth participation. There's soccer near you. Like, your kids can go play soccer. You can go play soccer. I was on a website of a USL team the other day, and I love this. On their website, not really front and center, but center and maybe just one scroll down, was join an adult rec league near you. I love that. I think that's great. Like, soccer's fun. It's fun to play. It's even if you're bad. I'm bad. I still like playing soccer. Your kids can go play soccer. There's probably professional soccer fairly near you if you're listening to this show. Going to games is fun. It's like probably more fun. I mean, I think it's more fun than going to any other sporting event. But vibes-wise, it's great. It's a lot of fun. Even if you want more goals, fair enough. We all kind of do. The atmosphere is fun. So go to games, get involved in the sport. I think it's fun. It's a good hobby. It's a good pastime. That's what I would say.
Excellent. I think I would have 2 points for the US casual soccer fan. Firstly, if you are going to SoFi Stadium, don't pay the $250 for the parking. You can park at TSS's World Cup headquarters for $246, and we'll do that without tax. So that's the full-in price. The second thing I would say is this sport is really fun. And if you actually engage with this tournament and you watch it, particularly in the latter rounds, you will see that this sport's better than the owl, superb owl one that you like, and all the others as well. So give it a chance, is what I would say. And so you'll see that the atmosphere and what people bring to it and what the crowd brings to it and the culture around it is what makes this game really work and it's what makes it the best thing in the world. That's what I would say.
Bars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Christian Pulisic is actually more than the LeBron James of soccer. That's what you should know.
He's the Christian Pulisic of soccer.
That's right.
He's the Andre Iguodala of basketball. I don't know.
That's bars.
Keep going.
I think actually I'm done. That was the
Okay.
right one.
JK461, thank you very much indeed for that one. One last question for this here episode from Aurora Rodriguez. With the St. Pauli president encouraging the German national team to boycott the World Cup, I was wondering what are the potential outs FIFA has in the event of more countries encouraging the idea of boycotting? Can FIFA move the tournament to different cities this close to the tournament? Or is the World Cup bigger than the US government and its policies? This is an interesting question, I suppose, in its premise, Taylor. I don't know about moving cities or moving nations is what's meant by that question. But I think ultimately it can't be moved now. And what I would say is FIFA and the World Cup have survived other political climates that are even more severe than this one. I think the only time I think it's actually been switched nation, if I'm not mistaken, is 1986 when it was from Colombia to Mexico. But they had a few years to kind of get that in place. And the World Cup as an entity, I think Taylor seems pretty impervious to the political situation of its host nation.
Yeah, to the question itself, I think FIFA would go the other way. I think they would probably ban protesting nations from additional tournaments. I don't think they care about politics at all. I think that's been proven time and time again, to your point, Ryan. So if anything, I think they would not welcome the dissent and probably punish it accordingly. To your other point, when you look at problematic past hosts, there are many, and there are the recent ones like Qatar and Russia, but you could have fascist Italy in 1934, you could have Mexico in 1970, and even Mexico in 1986, but 70 especially with one-party rule implemented. It's 2 years after the Tlatelolco massacre, where the government guns down between 300 and 500 student protesters. There's 1978 with Argentina and the military junta and the disappeareds, where 10 to 30,000 people were kidnapped, detained, tortured, and murdered. 1982 in Spain is only 7 years after the end of Franco's dictatorship. There was an attempted military coup the year before. So you've had plenty of problematic hosts for different reasons, and FIFA has been fine with it the whole way through. The Argentina one is maybe the most offensive and obvious and glaring in just how much it was about money and making it look great. I mean, literally painting favelas that were being gunned down and burned to look pretty and pastel in color. And don't go near them, though. We wouldn't go near them. That's not allowed. So I think FIFA wouldn't really move anything, especially because on the surface everything seems fine from their perspective. And to your point, Ryan, the only time it has ever been moved is that Colombia in 1986, and that was despite a lot of erroneous reporting and claims about drug wars, and even I feel like I saw articles about earthquakes and how that was a problem for Colombia. Really, it was basically just that they didn't have the infrastructure in place when they were awarded the tournament. And then by the time the 78 World Cup rolls around and the announcement of expansion, they're basically there's definitely no way we can build all the stadia needed to expand from 16 to 24 teams. It's just not going to work for us. And so they withdraw with plenty of time to spare. I think, we are past the point of no return for FIFA, if there ever was one to begin with.
Yeah. And even the discussion over the past few months that's come up about potentially moving cities from, say, cities that the leadership does not like at the moment, even that seems like it's a bit hollow, because that's not going to happen either, surely.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. According to a Guardian article that I read from maybe 2 or 3 months ago, when that was a bit of a talking point, Ryan, theoretically they could do it. Seattle released the hosting agreement that they signed with FIFA, and there is a clause that would allow FIFA to remove a host city, but only on the basis of safety. And even then, I think the logistics, especially this close to the tournament, the logistics would be absolutely massive. You'd be talking about moving teams who have booked certain training bases, and they'll have hotels and travel booked. And I think there would be countless lawsuits against FIFA from pretty much everyone involved, sponsors, fans, players, federations, everyone would sue FIFA. And so if FIFA didn't have a solid argument that public safety was at risk, which I don't doubt that like the White House may apply that pressure, it would just cost them so much that I just don't think it's feasible at all. And the US government and Trump can't unilaterally make that decision for FIFA. So TLDR, FIFA could do it, but I just think it's not viable at all.
That is one thing that like seems to have gotten lost in the shuffle for some folk when it comes to the FIFA Peace Prize award or whatever it was that was given to Donald Trump. Like, a lot of people, I feel like some like casuals were sort of like, can you believe that? Like, that's ridiculous. Why are you giving him that award? And like the obvious answer is like shiny trinket. Like you give him the thing so that he's like, okay, well, you like me, you can do what you want. And I think that's what they were trying to do, was make sure that he wasn't going to then kind of exert undue influence on the World Cup or any influence on the World Cup other than giving Cole Palmer the trophy when England win it at the end and we get a redo of the Club World Cup with Cole Palmer saying, you can go now, which is one of
I thought you were going to say he was going to put it in his pants like he did at the
that too.
conference.
That too. In order to shoo him away. Yes, that's what he'll do. But I think that's why FIFA has done some of the more ridiculous things it has done recently, is to kind of make sure that everything is fine so that they don't get pressure to move host cities, because I do think that would be very, very unpopular and problematic and cost them a lot of money.
Yeah. If FIFA do get pushed back, they're going to have to do that FIFA Oscar for Best Picture and have to give another award out, aren't they?
Oh, that feels too accurate. They get the first one for United Passions, and then the Melania one gets the second.
Graham,
can I just address the boycott part of the question here, because this is appearing a lot in my social channels right now. Like people will mention me and say, player boycott. We seem to have moved from a fan boycott to now a player boycott, which has been instigated by this. Who is it? A German Federation?
St. Pauli president.
Yeah, St. Pauli president. Not happening. Like it's just not. Maybe it should. I don't know. Maybe it should happen. But there's a couple of things here. The first thing is that over here being Europe, like the average person in the street knows, like they have an idea of what's going on in the US, but there's just not a willingness to do anything about it. Like because it's not. I don't mean this to sound flippant, but it's not our problem. There's just not a willingness to take something like the World Cup. Like I think people underestimate how beloved, how much people love the World Cup. And so maybe there should be a boycott, but there's just not going to be. The other thing that I think is maybe misunderstood is, and we kind of mentioned this briefly on Wednesday's USMNT Weekly, I think there's a big cultural difference between European athletes or athletes outside the US and American athletes. Like European athletes in particular British athletes actually, do not put their head above the parapet in any way when it comes to political issues. I'll always remember Emma Raducanu on the day of the UK election being asked at Wimbledon, so when are you going to find time to vote in the UK election? And when are you going to find time to vote? And her answer was, in what? And I don't think she was putting it on. Like she just did not know really what was happening. And even if she did, she would not have pinned a rosette on and said she was going to vote one way or the other. So I just think there's a massive cultural difference, and players are just not. I think there's a 0% chance. Like I wouldn't even put it at 1% that there's going to be a player-led boycott of this World Cup.
I think you'll get like what you almost had with, was it Denmark or Germany that wanted to wear like rainbow armbands or the like for 2022?
Stuff like that.
I think you'll get that type of protest and that type of like demonstration. But I ultimately don't think many players are going to kind of forego their opportunity to play at a World Cup to protest the U.S. president.
Yeah, indeed. Joe, anything to add, or should we close this one up?
Joe's announced his decision to boycott. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
He boycotted this discussion.
Joe will not be playing at the 2026 World Cup. It's a big personal decision. He'd like it if we all left him alone.
I've decided the best manager in the world is Wilfried Nancy. Thank you very much.
There is a guy on Instagram whose whole thing is he promises he's going to be the starting centre forward. Have you guys seen this? He's got tens of thousands of followers.
I refuse to give it any airtime.
He's told us all that he's going to be the starting centre forward for the US at the World Cup. He's not playing professionally anywhere. He's just a guy in a park playing football.
I believe he got a brand deal out of it, to be fair to the guy. Well played.
Is he actually a player? Like, does he have the profile?
No, I think the whole thing is he's just started playing soccer and he's going to play for at the World Cup. That's what he's told us all.
Let's staff the oxygen of the publicity on that one then, I would suggest. Aurora Rodriguez, thank you very much indeed for your question. Thank you to everybody who has submitted one. If you would like to do so, you can go to totalsoccershow.com/questions, or you can join our Discord where all the cool kids are hanging out, patreon.com/totalsoccershow. To do so, you'll get our bonus listener question on there and much, 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 much more. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir.
I shall. More cartoons, more breakfast cereal. Goodbye to you all.
Thank you very much. Graham Rusvan, let's all curse the name of Cyril Sneer. Thank you very much.
Oh, I will. Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And Joe Lowry, thank you very much, sir. Enjoy your weekend.
Hey, you too.
Listener, you have a great time. We'll be on the feed very shortly. But for now, bye!